يشهد ربي أن بروحي له حبا دوما قلبي فيه شدا. صهر الهادي أنت مرادي علي، صهر الهادي أنت مرادي علي. علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي. حار بشخصك يا حيدرة البشر، هتفت بمديحك مولاي السوار. نورك من أنوار الله انتشر، ملأ الدنيا غطى نور القمر. نفسك نفس الهادي طه الأغيار، وبك اكتمل الدين وعم الظفر. ذكرك خالد حبك شاهد علي، ذكرك خالد حبك شاهد علي. علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي. اي كياتتي تبها مي خلق مئير، نظري مرهمتي كن بمن فقير. علي ميراد شرمي رقت وقشتي خجل، قمرت في شيء تصرف كند بزير. جوني أولم بفدايت علي، جوني أولم بفدايت علي. علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي 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 مولا، علي علي مولا، علي علي مولا، علي. قالوا الرابع قلنا الأول علي، نص عنه في القرآن نزل. تمت فيه النعمة من ربنا والدين بفضل الكرار اكتمل. فاسأل عنه الليل وسوح الوغايا، أفغل كان مثل علي بطل. ولقيادي عند الجهاد علي، ولقيادي عند الجهاد علي. علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي 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 مولاي، علي علي مولاي، علي علي
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي يعلم عجيج الوحوش في الفلوات ومعاصي العباد في الخلوات واختلاف النينان في البحار الغامرات وتلاطم الماء بالرياح العاصفات، ثم السلام والصلاة على سيد الكائنات وأفضل أهل الأرضين والسماوات، سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، المبعوث بالمعجزات الباهرات والآيات البينات، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، مصابيح الظلمات وعصم الأمة من الهلكات، الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا، ولا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته في العالمين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه فداء، واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم وجاحدي مناقبهم ومنكري فضائلهم من الآن إلى أبد الآبدين. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله، ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف ولعن أعداءهم. I extend to you my greetings. May Allah bless you and may He give you health and may He protect you in these uncertain times. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the capacity to know Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and to love Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Our discussion on the topic of Taqlid comes to conclusion perhaps today, and this would be the 22nd speech in the English language on the topic of Taqlid. There is just one more verse in the Noble Qur'an that some mujtahideen have tried to argue in its basis to prove the validity of Taqlid, the legality of Taqlid. And that is the verse in Surah Al-Hujurat, verse number 6. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. So I'm going to show you the Arabic text of the verse and translate it the way I would translate it. And then I will show you other translations, and they're not very different from what I would translate, perhaps the same translation. So there's not a big difference in the translation of the verse. And then I'll explain how would jurists try to substantiate taqlid on its basis. So here is the verse, Surah Al-Hujurat, verse number 6. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا, or those who have faith, who believe in Allah, إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ, if a fasiq, if a corrupt person, a degenerate person, a person who is shamelessly vulgar, shamelessly evil, a person who is incredibly degenerate, if such a person brings you a news, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, in such a case, make certain, investigate, make an inquiry, investigate that news, that information that's being imparted, that's being conveyed by this very profligate person, this very degenerate person, this person of a very low character, base character, that information is indeed true. Because if it's not true, أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ, you may encounter another people. You may have an encounter. You may have a face-off when another group, out of ignorance, out of bad information, out of wrong information. فَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ, and it would follow that you would become remorseful, that you would become regretful because of what you did. In other words, let's explain this, put it into simple English. If a person of low character, a person of base character, a person who is shamelessly degenerate, such a person brings you a news, brings you an information, investigate. Do not take his word for granted. Investigate. Go make an inquiry. Make sure that the news that this person is bringing is indeed true. out of cautious that you may encounter another group of people, and then you would take out some actions, carry out some actions that you would regret. Later, you will have remorse about them. So, a degenerate person brings you a news that he saw somebody, for instance, killing another person. Or he brings a news that I saw that this person was stealing your money, or this person was setting your home on fire, your house on fire. So you make sure that this news is correct. So Quran is not saying that you reject that news, but investigate that news. Inquire about it. If that news is correct, then proceed. If that news is not correct, do not proceed. Because if you proceed without investigating that information and you rely on that untruthful person, then you would do something that later you would regret. This book is the Holy Quran, translated by Mr. Qarai, published by Islamic College for Advanced Studies in London. Okay, let's go here, page number 728, Surah Al-Hujurat, verse number 6. That's how this gentleman here has translated. O you have faith, O you who have faith. If a profligate person should bring you news. Profligate person is a person who is a very shameless and a very evil character. Should bring you some news. Verify it. فَتَبَيَّنُوا. So verify it, lest you should visit harm on some people out of ignorance and then become regretful for what you've done. So that is very close to what I translated, right? Now let's go to another translation. Dr. Taqiyuddin al-Hilali and Dr. Muhammad Mohsin Khan, the Noble Quran, published in Saudi Arabia. Surah Al-Hujurat, verse number 6. O you who believe, if a fasiq, a liar, or evil person comes to you with any news, verify it, lest you should harm people in ignorance, and afterwards you become regretful for what you've done. So that is the verse. A person brings you a news that is his character is low, just verify it and then proceed. So that is what Quran is saying. Now, how does it indicate taqlid? How would this verse, right? It is not talking about taqlid, is it? No, obviously it's not talking about taqlid. What is taqlid? Taqlid is the fatwa. If a mujtahid is hujjah for you, you have to follow the fatwa of a mujtahid. So how does that relate to taqlid? Now, some mujtahideen have tried to prove taqlid on this verse's basis, and that would be of course, to interpret this verse in a very lax way, to try to derive the meaning of taqlid from this verse. This book is Bayanul Fiqh in the Sharh of Urwatul Wuthqa by Sayyid Sadiq al-Shirazi. Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Shirazi, you would know he's quite well known. He is a marja. He has some followers here and there. And he has many TV channels, and most of them, perhaps many Shia know him. Okay, this is volume number 1 of his book, published in Qom and Dar al-Ansar. Let's go page number 38. He's talking about taqlid. So first he quotes the verse. The verse we have already translated, so I don't have to translate it again. Then he says, دَلَّتْ بِمَفْهُومِهَا عَلَى حُجِّيَةِ قَوْلِ الْمُخْبِرِ الْعَادِلِ. He says this verse implies. Mafhum means the meaning that is implied. That's not directly the meaning of something. Mafhum is a meaning, a notion that could be derived. That is the implication of a statement. So this verse is saying that when an evil person is bringing you news, a person of degenerate character, a low life bring you news, then you verify it. Okay, what does it imply? It implies that if a person of upright character brings you news, brings you a piece of facts, so then you do not have to verify. That's basically what it means. Well, that's what he's arguing for. Quran is saying that you should verify when a person of degenerate character brings you some facts, verify that they are indeed true, and then if, so it would imply that if a person brings you the news that who is not an evil character, was not a low life, he says, I saw such and such a thing, I heard with my own ears that this person said this, or I saw with my own eyes that this person was setting that car on fire, then you have to believe. You have to believe him. You do not have to verify. So, دلت بمفهومها, this verse implies, has this implication. على حجية قول المخبر العادل, that a person who is bringing a news and he is adil, he is of an upright character. And then he goes, وَالْفَقِيهُ الْعَادِلْ يُنْبِئُ عَنْ حُكْمِ اللَّهِ فَيَجِبُ قَبُولُهُ. On the other hand, we know that a jurist who is adil, a jurist who has an upright character, when he is giving a fatwa, he is reporting, he's quoting the ruling of Allah. When he says this is wajib, in other words, he is saying Allah has said this is wajib. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said this is wajib. This is the ruling of Allah. So, Qur'an said, what did Qur'an say? Qur'an said if an evil person brings you news, you verify it. Right? It implies that if a good person brings you a new piece of news, you do not have to verify it. Okay? Now, mujtahid is a good person. So, mujtahid brings you the news, the information, facts. Which facts? That Allah's hukum, Allah's rule is this, this, this. Therefore, you do not have to verify it. And that is taqlid. That is verily taqlid. فَيَجِبُ قَبُولُ قَوْلِهِ وَهَذَا هُوَ التَّقْلِيد. And this is taqlid. So, and then he goes, proceeds and says that, okay, if you say that mujtahid is not really giving me facts, mujtahid is not me informing me of rule of Allah, that is wrong. Mujtahid, what is mujtahid is doing? Mujtahid expresses his opinion. Mujtahid is merely expressing his opinion. He is expressing his own theory that this thing, according to me, I think it's halal, I think it's haram, I think it's wajib. He is not reporting, he is not quoting something that he saw, something that he heard, something that he read. No, he is merely quoting his opinion. So the verse, even if we agree that the verse says, that the verse implies that if a person of upright character brings a piece of information, you do not have to verify it, even if we agree that implication. This is talking about a person of upright character brings you facts, brings you a news, something that he saw, something that he heard, something that he read, right? If he says, I read in this book, this, and this, then you have to, even if we agree that this verse implies that you don't have to verify and you can trust him, this verse is not saying that about anything about people's opinion. Mujtahid is giving you opinion. Sadiq Shirazi replies to this criticism in the following way. يرده أنه يخبر عن حكم الله ولكن بحدثه كأهل الخبرة الذين يخبرون عن القيمة الواقعية بحدثهم. He says you do not know. He is not giving his opinion. He is estimating. So a mujtahid is estimating. He is informing you of the rule of Allah out of his estimation, out of his conjecture. Hads in the Arabic language means to estimate, to guess, to make a conjecture. So a mujtahid is indeed, say, don't tell me mujtahid is giving his opinion. No. Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi says, he says mujtahid is not giving his opinion. He is reporting the hukm of Allah according to his estimation, according to his guess. Just like people who are experts in the market, a person who's an expert in the market, they guess the prices of commodities in the future. So if you were an expert in the stock market, you have a lot of experience, perhaps you could make some good guesses. You could guess how much Apple stock is going to be in 6 months or how much Tesla stocks are going to be in 6 months, how much Google stocks are going to be in 1 year from now. So, and I'm not making this up. Perhaps some of you find this very funny and comical and not very serious, but that's exactly what this guy is saying. This famous mujtahid, respected mujtahid, and he has lots of followers too. And that is their understanding. That's how they want to prove. They want to prove taqlid from Qur'an. Okay, so take as example a person who is an expert in the market, right, and trades. For instance, you are, let's say you buy material from China, products from China, and you import them to another country. So if you are an expert, you can guess that I'm buying these, let's say, these sets of washing machines, or these sets of furniture, or these sets of clothing from China, and then I'm going to bring them to India, or I'm going to bring them to Pakistan, or Iran, or the United States. How much is going to sell for in these countries? You can make a good guess, right? And most of the time, that guess is very good. So this is an estimation, a guess, a conjecture, a good conjecture, a learned conjecture, a learned guess, a learned estimate that you have made with regard to what the price should be in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, after you import these commodities, these products from China to such and such country. Likewise, a mujtahid, he makes a guess of the hukm of Allah, and then he reports that hukm of Allah to you. And therefore, this verse of the Noble Quran, its implication encompasses the mujtahid. So that is the argument of this very renowned jurist with regard to this verse and how it would legitimize taqlid. And perhaps I cannot make any further comment that this is, you would know this is so ludicrous, right? First of all, the verse is simply saying what? If a person brings you news, he is of degenerate character, verify it. Now, what he's bringing you news, he's bringing you his observation, he's bringing you what he saw, what he heard, or what he read, right? This person who is a lowlife, he's bringing you some news, so verify. Do not proceed according to the news he's bringing. Verify and investigate and make an inquiry. If that information that he brought to you is verily correct, then proceed. Otherwise, do something else. Don't proceed. Now, it's talking about naba, about news, about something that has happened, an incident that he's reporting. The verse is not talking about the person's opinion. Now let's go to the implication of this verse. Does this verse really have that implication? Does this verse really connote this other notion that if a person of upright character brings you a news, you have to trust it. You have to trust it. Does it? You have to. You can have no reason not to trust it. Does it say that? Does the verse say that? Really? Obviously, the direct meaning of the verse, the direct denotative meaning of the verse is that which I translated. If a person of low character brings you news, verify. Now, does it imply that if a person of upright character brings you news, you have to trust it? No. That is really, I would have a hesitation to agree to that. The verse is not talking about that. A person who is of upright character could bring you some news, and you still could have hesitation, skepticism, in order to accept his news. You could be doubtful of his observations for any reason, right? Then you could still proceed to verify, and the verse is not saying that you have to trust him in any case. Even if we agree, the verse says such a thing, that if a person of upright character brings you a news. Let's say he says to you, I read in this document A, B, C. Okay, let's agree. The verse says that if the, the verse doesn't say that, but let's agree that's the implication of the verse. That when he says that I saw A, B, C in this newspaper, you have to agree to him. You have to accept that. Or he says, I went there and I saw there was a fire. Or he says, I went there and I saw there was a quarrel. I went there and I heard your wife telling this guy A, B, C. Okay, let's agree that it means you have to accept that. But the verse is not talking about opinions, people's opinions, right? People's opinions. And Sadiq Shirazi cannot deny that when a mujtahid is giving a fatwa, he is giving his opinion. And as a matter of fact, he agrees. And he tries to hide that matter, that a fatwa is an opinion. But that's quite obvious that fatwa is an opinion from his own statement. He says, just like experts in the market, they make good estimates, learned estimates of what prices should be, right? What prices should be. They make good estimates. Likewise, mujtahideen make estimates. So that is what we call opinions. That's what we call opinions. Facts are different than opinions. Facts are matters that could be corroborated with observation. Facts could be corroborated with observation. Another person will see them and they would report them also. Opinions are those conclusions that we have derived, we have deduced from facts. So a mujtahid is giving you his opinion. Now, this verse in no way, by any stretch of the imagination, is stating that if a person of upright character gives you his opinion, you have to agree to that opinion. And if it had said so, that would legitimize taqlid, but the verse is not saying that. And our life, all of you know, our life would be so miserable if we had to agree with the opinion of every person who is of upright character. Having a good character, an honest character, having integrity and character does not translate into having valid opinions on different things. You could be a very honest person, and your opinions could be wrong on most things, right? And you could be a degenerate person, and your opinions could be correct on most things. There is no correlation between having an upright character and having correct opinions on various matters. So, Quran is not talking about this verse, and this is tafsir bil-ra'i. This is interpreting Quran according to the purpose that suits your position. And if you remember my speech, not the 21st lecture on this topic, but the 20th lecture on this topic, I narrated so many narrations from Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam that interpreting Quran, producing exegeses of the noble Quran, bil-ra'i, for your own theories that would suit your theories, that is a matter of great sin and a matter of great concern. And Quran, the Hadith actually call that lack of faith, lack of Iman, and a person could be outside the bounds of Iman in Islam for committing this serious error, this serious sin. And that is not something that mujtahideen do not commit all the time. And you saw all of this. So, this verse does not prove validity of taqlid. And with this assertion, I conclude that I've produced to you and I've explained to you all the proofs that have been advanced by mujtahideen, advanced by jurists in order to validate taqlid. And based on reason, based on rationality, based on the verse of Quran, and based on the sayings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And none of these verses prove taqlid. None of these proofs, whether the rational approach, whether the proofs based on hadith or the verse of the noble Quran, they prove taqlid. On the contrary, most of these proofs that mujtahideen have advanced for taqlid, they disprove taqlid, and they As a matter of fact, they prove its opposite method, which is following hadith. And now the alternative to taqlid, right? Following hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. That does not require any proof for any Shia that that is a valid method. Follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, what they have said to you. That is Iman, that is faith. If we agree that we are Shia, if I'm not addressing non-Muslims, and if I'm not, let's assume I'm not addressing non-Shia. If we all agree we are Shia, right? Shiism means, Shiism presupposes the fact that we have already submitted to the authority of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and we follow them. So the alternative to taqlid, what is the alternative to taqlid? To follow the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. The veracity of that method, the validity of that method, and the legitimacy of that method is beyond any dispute. It's self-evident. For Shia, for those who are Shia. If you're not Shia, of course, then we have to prove to you that why you should follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. But if we agree that we are Shia, then if Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says to you, do this, do this, do this, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has commanded to do the following things. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam has said to proceed in your prayers in this way, and your ghusl in this way, and your fasting in this manner, then there's no question. There's no question as Shia, we have to follow that, right? So the alternative to taqlid is self-evident. Taqlid itself is invalid and doesn't have any proof. I conclude with that my discussion on taqlid. And if there's any doubt in your minds, and if you have found, let's say, if you have by any chance, you as a genius, you have found a proof that provides us good grounds for accepting taqlid as a legitimate Shari'i method to follow rulings of Islam, please share it with me. And I will always have an open mind, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. And perhaps you will be able to do something that other jurists have failed. You would perhaps shed light on this matter where other jurists, other mujtahideen have failed. But there's no question that taqlid is a bid'ah, a blasphemy, and a heresy, and a method that has come into Shia faith from the other denomination. So taqlid is done. Let's go to the next topic. The next topic is when we are following hadith, if there is inconsistency between 2 hadith, or between 3 hadith, or between 4 hadith, what is the solution? What should we do? What should we do? And this is always brought to you. This matter, this problem is put before the common Shia is a reason why you should do taqlid, right? They tell you you should not follow hadith. You should do taqlid because there is inconsistency amongst ahadith. How are you going to follow them? They contradict each other. So how are you going to follow a hadith when they are self-contradictory? So this problem is many a time is advanced as a reason why you should do taqlid. But if you step back a moment and analyze this proof, it doesn't prove taqlid. It does not prove taqlid just because there's consistency between, my apologies, just because there's contradiction and inconsistency between ahadith. It does not mean the word and the guess and the estimate of another person is the rule of Islam for me. It doesn't mean. It only means that I have to find out how do I resolve inconsistency amongst ahadith. So what do you do when you find inconsistency between 2 hadith or 3 hadith or 4 hadith? First of all, as a common person, now we are talking about situations that perhaps is not practical for many Shia, but this is the only way you can follow Islam and follow Shiaism. And the reason that it's not practical is because Shia ulama, you are facing a big hurdle. If you want to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and if you want to follow the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu wasalam, your foremost hurdle, your foremost hindrance in this way are the Shia ulama. It's Shia ulama who will fight back, will discourage you from following the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam for the many reasons that perhaps I've alluded to them in the past lectures. Shia ulama have abandoned hadith. That is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. And that follows this travesty that Shia common population, many Shia common populations, they do not have access to hadith. They do not have access to hadith. Because Shia ulama, they've not produced works of hadith. They have not produced books of exegesis on hadith for many centuries. Now, of course, there have been some books of interpretation and commentary and exegesis on hadith, but they have been the works of a very small minority among Shia scholars who are muhaddithin, who are scholars of hadith, who, like me, oppose ijtihad and oppose taqlid. There's their works. But the vast majority of Shia ulama, the big block of Shia ulama, the major body of Shia ulama, they have abandoned the hadith. They do not know what hadith is. They do not read books of hadith. And they're not familiar with books of hadith. And most importantly, they do not teach hadith and do not provide hadith to Shia common folks. So for a common Shia to access hadith, it's not easy. Now we are talking about the English-speaking world. So English-speaking world is very new to Shiism, right? There are Shia, a new generation of Shia youth who don't know any language but English. But if you go back a few generations, there were very few native Shias who spoke English as their mother tongue. Mostly they were Shia or Arabs, Persian, or Urdu-speaking Shia, or some other languages. And in those languages, there are books of hadith that have been translated, and they have interpretations, but they're not sufficient, of course. They're not sufficient. But we know coming to the English language, in the recent eras and the recent years, there have been some translations, but I'm not sure what's their quality and how good they are. So we indeed face this problem that Shia ulama do not know hadith. They cannot answer you according to hadith. That's one problem. And there are not sufficient number of books that have been peer reviewed, and they have good commentaries on the that take the responsibility of bringing you hadith. But if Shia scholars, now we are talking about mistake and error that has been going on for centuries, right? If this method of following hadith, which is not a new method, this was the method how Shia used to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam for centuries. And then there came a period when Shias abandoned. It started from scholars, they abandoned hadith, and they started doing ijtihad and taqlid. So for many centuries, vast majority of Shia, they have abandoned hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and they have started following their scholars. And their scholars are immersed in fatwa, immersed in their own theories, and they are very unfamiliar with hadith. Now, how do we correct the situation? The correct the situation would be there's no other way but to demand hadith from scholars. And these scholars will not give you hadith. So you have to look for those scholars who can provide you hadith. The very few books that have been translated, read them and learn from them. And if Shia scholars they carried out their duties, then this would not be a problem because there are lots of Shia scholars. There are lots of Shia scholars, but all they do is quote fatwa. They take the burden of quoting fatwa and teaching fatwa to Shia, but they do not quote hadith. Now, if I were a teacher of hadith in the English language, I was teaching you hadith, right? When I teach hadith, it's not necessary to. Now, we're talking about contradictory hadith that have inconsistency between. First of all, the majority vast majority of our hadith do not have an inconsistency amongst them. Rather, vast majority of our hadith, they're consistent with each other. They're in conformity with each other. They help us understand. One of them help us understand the next, and the next, and the next. So there's not, this matter has been blown out of proportion because mujtahideen, they do not want you to turn to hadith, so they exaggerate this problem. That's one issue. Now, there are many hadith that are said to be inconsistent, but they're not really inconsistent. They just require a little further examination because these inconsistencies are superficial, they're not essential. They are in a way that if you examine further and if you ponder and if you look closer, these inconsistencies disappear. So if I were teaching you hadith, I would be explaining that to you. That, look, these two hadith, you perhaps think they're inconsistent, but they're not as inconsistent for this reason and this reason and this reason. Just if I were teaching you a fatwa, a book of fatwa, these two fatwa, perhaps they may seem to you inconsistent, but they are not inconsistent on the basis of this and this and this. And I mentioned to you time and again, to learn fatwa is more difficult. To teach fatwa is more difficult. And to learn hadith is easier. And to teach hadith is easier. And fatwa are way more complex than hadith Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So that's the first thing. And I've always mentioned to you that there's no other way for the common Shia. How is he going to practice hadith? How is he going to follow hadith? No other option. But scholars translate books and write commentaries on those books. Now, we are not talking about any translation, any commentary, translations that are written by expert scholars who have expertise in English and expertise in Arabic. And then there are men of good character and good knowledge who can translate these books of hadith. That's number one. And then commentaries that are written that further simplify, that further help you understand the content of hadith, written by such scholars. And these books should be reviewed by other scholars. And that is one way. There's no escape from that. Either this or the second way would be a scholar who would give you lectures, who would sit down and would teach you hadith one by one, read it, translate it, teach you. And there is no other option than these two. So I never, in my lectures in English, in my lectures in Arabic, in my lectures in Urdu, in my lectures in English, I've never propagated this idea that's attributed to me that I tell Shias to turn away from their scholars, that they do not need their scholars and they have to read hadith on their own and then go practice. I do not say that. There is no escape from good scholars. Which scholars? Scholars that convey the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to you. Scholars that bring you the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. From those scholars, there is no other. You don't have any choice, either in person, either online, videos, audio tapes, their lectures, or their books. There is no other option. There is no other option. Just like if you were to follow fatwa for common Shia, right? You would need books of fatwa that have been written by scholars or translated by scholars or simplified by commentaries by scholars, or you attend their lectures in person or online or watch their videos. So the methodology in this regard is not very different. So we come back to inconsistent hadith. Now, if a person is teaching hadith, he should always explain if there's inconsistency between a hadith. How do we, if there's this inconsistency is such that it's superficial, it's not essential, it's not really a real inconsistency. We see it as an inconsistency at first glance, but then when we ponder, when we examine, it disappears. Such inconsistencies, they should be explained easily by the scholar who is providing you either the commentary, the translation, or giving you a lecture in person. That is one. That's one level of inconsistency. So the vast majority of hadith, they're not inconsistent. And then the other, when we go to those hadith that are alleged to be inconsistent, their vast majority are of this category of hadith, that their inconsistencies disappear on further examination. Now let's go to another level. There are hadith that are inconsistent, and they are not weak, and they're not made up, and their inconsistency cannot be resolved, right? What do we do? And that is my objective to explain to you. Now, why do we have such ahadith that have been indeed transmitted by the holy imams alayhim salam, and they contradict another hadith that has been conveyed perhaps by the same imam alayhi salam? Aren't they infallible? Of course they're infallible. Aren't they divinely appointed guides? Of course they are. So why would there be any inconsistency amongst their statements? Let's go to the book of Al-Usul al-Kafi. This is Usul al-Kafi, volume number 1, published by Dar al-Kutub al-Islamiyya in Tehran, page number 65. There's a chapter in Al-Kafi, Kitab al-Ilm, the first section of Kafi, on the chapter of Ikhtilaf al-Hadith, Ikhtilaf, inconsistency amongst ahadith, lack of conformity amongst ahadith, contradiction in hadith. So in that chapter, there are many hadith that are relevant to our topic here. Hadith number 5 on this, Zurara says, Zurara ibn A'yan, who is a very respected narrator and the companion of the 5th Imam alayhi salam and 6th Imam. He says, Sa'altu an mas'alatin. I was in the companionship, I was with Al-Imam Baqir Ulum al-Nabiyin alayhi salam. I asked him about something, فَأَجَابَنِي. He gave me an answer. And then another person came, and he gave him a different answer. And then a third person came, and then he gave him a different answer. And right there in front of me in the same session, within half an hour, within an hour or less, he gave 3 people 3 different answers. And they left, those 2 guys left. قُلْتُ يَا ابْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. I said, my master, what happened? What did I just see? I asked you a question, you gave a different answer. Then these 2 different individuals came. They came a long way. They came from Iraq to you. And you gave each person a different answer. Why? فقال يا زرارة إن هذا خير لنا وأبقى لكم. Zurara, listen, you are living in a very troubling time. Shia are regarded as whom? As the opposition party. The caliph knows, their rulers knows, the ruling class knows, all the governors in different areas, they know the Shia regard the Khilafah, regard the caliph, the government, as illegitimate. They know that. So, as soon as they feel any sort of danger from you, as soon as they see that you are a group, that could be a risk for them. Because they know, they know for a fact that Shia regard them as illegitimate. And they regard their Imam in Medina as the legitimate ruler. So the very moment that they feel that you could be a serious threat for them, they will crack down. They will crack down on Shias and also on us, the Imam, on the family of the Imam and Imam's person. So it is very important that the government does not feel any sort of risk from you, any sort of danger from you. They do not smell any sort of threat from you. And how would that sense of threat would be alleviated, right? If they see the Shia, if the government sees the Shia as a unit minority that they are so organized, they are so unified, all their actions are consistent with each other, and they do not have any disputes amongst themselves. And they follow this person in Medina and they send their homes to him and they carry out their actions. And this person in Medina, he claims that he is the rightful heir of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he commands immense amount of respect amongst all Muslims, even those Muslims who are not Shia. And then he has reps in different areas, in different governments, in Yemen, in Egypt, in Khurasan, in Iraq, and Qom. All these different areas, he has followers, and they come and visit him and they ask him questions. And so, in other words, if the government sees that you are very organized and that you are very unified and there are no inconsistency in your actions, then they will feel that they have to, you're a threat. And at that time, the Abbasid and or the Bani Umayyad, they were the superpower of the world. Europe was nothing against them. In the East, in the East, when you go towards China, they didn't have any challenges. They didn't have any. Their empire was so vast. The Umayyad Empire is the second or the third vastest empire in human history, in the recorded human history. The first, the, as far as the vastness of the empire is concerned, is the British Empire. British Empire, its height in the Victorian era, it was the vastest empire in human history. But it was very dispersed, right? Canada, and you had Australia, and you had China, portions of uh, India, and portions of China. It was dispersed, but Umayyad Empire was one piece of land and central to the globe at the time. You start from the borders of India and go all the way to Spain. That was Banu Umayyad's empire. And the second vastest empire ever was the Mongolian Empire, Mughal Empire, the Mongolian Empire, Genghis Khan's conquests. The second or third generations of the Mongols, their empire was the vastest. And then the third one was Bani Umayyah, and then perhaps Bani Abbas. So they didn't have any deficiency in forces, and they didn't have any clemency against Shia either. If they felt that Shia are a threat, they would destroy Shias. So it was very important that they never feel that Shia are a threat for them. And at that time, the time of the Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, it were the Zaydis, who were a revolutionary cult, who were a revolutionary group, and they always rebelled against the Caliph. And the Caliphs usually were busy cracking down against Zaydis. And these Zaydis, they were mostly, their Imams were, of course, always their Imams were from the progeny of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Zahra salamullah alayhi. And they used to falsely claim Imama. And they used to get killed all the time. And they used to get defeated all the time, but generation after generation. They used to rise up against different caliphs, and it disseminated again. So at that time, for the Shias, it was very important. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam said to Zurara, you saw me in the one session. I gave three different answers, because this is for own good, our own good. And this helps you survive. This is critical for your survival. Look at the answer of the Imam. Ya Zurara, inna hada khayrun lana wa abqa lana. This is good for us, and this helps us survive. Walakum, and this helps you survive. This abqa, for your survival. This is a matter of survival for us and a matter of survival for you. ولو اجتمعتم على أمر واحد تصدقكم الناس علينا. If you Shia were all unified, if you Shia were all uniform, then people would consider you that you are indeed followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Then you would have no excuse, no way to hide that you are Shia, right? Because they know how. The government knows, their scholars know, their governors, they know how Shia pray, how Shia perform Hajj, how Shia do various things. They know that. And if there's a person in such a locality, he wants to hide being a Shia. If I tell him everything according to Shia faith, right, then he will not be able to do taqiyya. He will not be able to hide from the government, from his own tribe, from the regional governors that he's not Shia. And then he'll be caught and he'll be killed. وَلَكَانَ أَقَلَّ لِبَقَائِنَا وَلِبَقَائِكُمْ. And if you were all uniform, this would hasten our own, the Imams alayhi salam. And it will hasten you, and your survival and our survival will be in jeopardy. So now, does the Imam alayhi salam has the authority, divine authority to tell different people to do different things? Of course. And there are many hadith in that regard. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam did not have to change the rulings of Sharia. He has that authority for each person to give him a ruling according to his own situation. Zurara says, I said to Imam Ali, ثم قلت لأبي عبد الله. At the later time, I said this to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. I said to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. I said, شيعتكم لو حملتموهم على الأسنة أو على النار لمضوا وهم يخرجون من عندكم مختلفين. I told Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam that your Shia are so submissive, so obedient to you. If you ask them to charge against spears, they will do that happily. And if you ask them to walk on fire, they will do that happily. And they come to you, ask you questions, and they get out of here while they have disputes amongst themselves. Shias have disputes amongst themselves. They have disunity. You cause the disunity, right? That Imam alayhi, Zurara says, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, فَأَجَابَنِي بِمِثْلِ جَوَابِ أَبِي. He gave me the same answer as his father did, Imam al-Baqir, same answer, that this is a matter of survival. This is a matter of survival. Okay, there are some more narrations in this regard, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, why Shia, Imams alayhim salam, used to give inconsistent commands to different Shias, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. There will be more detail in the coming lectures. Now, let me see if you want to call me. I'll answer your phone calls if you'd like to call me. So you can call by okay, we have some calls waiting already. Oh. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Can you hear me, Sheikh?
Yeah, how you doing, brother? May Allah bless you. Sayyid Ali, is this you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Yeah, this is me speaking, Sayyid Ali.
Oh, very nice talking to you. How are you? How is your family? May Allah bless you.
Alhamdulillah, I'm not bad. I'm still alhamdulillah, seeking the life. Hope everything is well with you.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, how can I help you?
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so I wanted to just ask a couple of questions, inshallah ta'ala.
Yes.
With regard to Taqlid, and I hope to watch all the lectures in successive order and take notes, inshallah, when time permits.
Okay.
But firstly, I wanted to ask if you've read any of say, Taqi Mudarris's works, because I'm wondering if there's a middle ground solution, for the people who are anti-Taqlid and pro-Taqlid. For example, if we read his Risala, we find that what he's tried to do in his approach is actually include many narrations for his fatwa to make people close to that hadith. Because if you're in studying ahkam, we've become out of touch with ahadith, and sometimes no ahadith are mentioned. But when you read, for example, some of the fatwa, like don't pray, you can pray with blood on your clothing, which isn't bigger than a coin. You see the words of the Marja is kind of paraphrasing some of that hadith which mention this, but it's not very mentioned. So in his works, he tries to mention hadith. Do you think this is kind of a better solution and a way forward for Taqlid, in the sense that, or following fatwa of Marja?
Yeah, I understood what you said. Now, I didn't understand the first part of what you said. Did you say that you have watched all my speeches, or you said you will watch them in the future?
Oh no, I've watched some of them, but inshallah, I'm going to watch
Okay.
all of them in
Okay.
success.
Inshallah. Okay, got it. Now, to find a middle ground, there is no middle ground between taqlid and not doing taqlid. Either you're doing taqlid or not doing taqlid. See, what I'm saying is that you have to pay attention to what I'm saying. That as if you have confidence in a person that his words are true, his words are consistent with hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. If you have confidence in him because he's quoting hadith, because you read those hadith before, or because you know this is a person who never ever says something out of his own opinion, says something that he has not thoroughly investigated. Of course, anytime, if you encounter such a person that you are confident that he always quotes hadith, or he doesn't speak without hadith, if you are confident that his words are consistent with kalam of Ahlul Bayt, with sayings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, then there is no reason anybody could ever discourage you to accept his words. Because
okay.
hold on, let me finish. It's important, okay? Let me finish.
Go ahead.
But this is not taqlid, because taqlid is regardless you're confident or not confident. Even if you're doubtful that he's perhaps making an error, is still his words are hujjah for you. The mufti's words of hujjah for you. That's number one. Number two, if you analyze the method of mujtahideen, there you can never be confident that their words stem out of hadith, because mujtahideen, many a time, it's very, very shameful, and it's a big tragedy. They make up things, and there's no other way to put it. And we are always quite boastful how we talk to the non-Shia, the other denomination, how we call them out that they're mujtahideen. They make up things because of qiyas, because of analogy. But our mujtahideen always make up things. So as long as a person is following the method of mujtahideen, this confidence that what he is saying is consistent with hadith can never be acquired. This is number one. This is number two. And number three, there's such a confidence that if a person, whatever he's saying is according to hadith, this is very difficult in any case to acquire. It could be on partial things, because on something, if he's quoting a hadith already and you did not quite grab him, but you saw him, he deduced this matter from hadith and he explained it, but you were not sure how he did it. Okay, on that one occasion, you could perhaps be confident that his word is according to hadith. But you cannot be sure of that in every case. So what is taqlid? Taqlid is the word of mujtahid is hujjah for me. That is the biggest problem with taqlid. The word of mujtahid has the force of law for me. And there's no reason in Sharia, there is no reason in Qur'an or Hadith or rationality that makes the word of mujtahid hujjah, another person who's not ma'soom hujjah for me. The only thing that's hujjah for me is the words of ma'soomin alayhim as-salam. The words of ma'soomin alayhim as-salam. Now, if you open a book, this person is quoting hadith. Well, you said mudarrisi, or any person. He's quoting a hadith and then he's quoting hadith, explaining. That's a very good method. That is a very good method. And there's no escape from that. I don't know of any other method that could work for the Shia, that you bring, scholars write books, they quote hadith, they explain, they go to next hadith, they quote hadith and explain. And in all those explanations, Shia are not bound to follow any explanation. They do not words of non-ma'soom never has the force of the law, force of hadith. Only if you're satisfied that this is according to hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, then you can follow. As soon as you have doubts whether it's according to Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or not, it has no hujjiyah. It never has the power of law. Go ahead. I hope I'm clear. Go ahead, brother.
So you're saying the words of this mujtahid are valuable once they've proven it's either from a hadith or on principles. Because, you know, for some of my teachers, for example, when they discuss maybe, you know, for example, cocaine, heroin, we may not have these drugs in the time of the imams, but some mujtahideen, based on the principle of becoming intoxicated, that this is haram, they'll base the fatwa of this. So you're saying are you also saying it's fine if we know it's from a principle, from a hadith?
If you have a hadith that's all encompassing, if you have a hadith that's a universal principle, and it could have many instances, and it could have applications here. Of course, all those instances that we know that this hadith truly applies to those instances, then you're following the words of the Imam alayhi salam. That's absolutely. As long as it is a step forward, that he's making an effort to make this style of including a hadith, so people can be confident, okay, this has a basis. Because obviously for some fatwa, like, you know, I went to university, I did a dissertation on homosexuality, Islam, and sometimes when you make a conclusion on certain issue, it might be like 50 pages. So I can understand some mujtahideen, they might have a big research, but would you say, okay, maybe they've got a big research to each one fatwa, but you're saying it should be published so the people you have to be very wary of the mujtahideen, because the problem with mujtahideen is that they have these complex discussions all the time, very complex theories they have on different topics. And the problem is these theories and these discussions, because they are man-made, these discussions, these theories, these complicated 50 pages that you refer to on any given topic. These are the things that have gradually piled up in Shiism, gradually. Originally, these discussions were brought in from non-Shia, from the fiqh of Shafi'i, fiqh of Hanafi. And then very intelligent people, very smart people, very learned people, they try to refine those theories and try to add up and make them better, and then introduce their own theories. So all these theories have added up. They have nothing. They have nothing with Islam, nothing with Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, nothing with sayings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And they're just theories and they're very complex discussions. So and that is the problem with mujtahideen, that they cannot explain their rulings, that they have a hard time explaining their rulings according to hadith, because they're bound by these theories and complex discussions that has nothing to do. And that's what they spend their time studying and teaching: theories, complex theories, and words of each other. And but hadith is not like that. Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam is not very complicated. Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam could be easily, doesn't require all those detailed discussions. So the mujtahideen went a different way. Mujtahideen, their entire discipline of fiqh, this entire discipline of ijtihad, that they study and they spend their decades refining it and teaching it and propagating it, is very alien to hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. It's not commentary of hadith. Ijtihad in fiqh is not commentary of hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. It is not a quotation of hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam solely. The majority of fiqh that we have, I'm talking about the big, huge chunk of, if you open Misbah of Ayatollah Khuy, Tanqih of Ayatollah Khuy, or you open Jawahir al-Kalam of Sahib Jawahir. These books, majority of them are their own theories that they discuss. 85%, 90%, and 10% is hadith. And that 10% or 5% that they discuss hadith, they do not explain hadith. They do not have commentary on hadith. So the path of mujtahideen is very different, I'm afraid, and very alien to the path of understanding hadith and acting according to hadith.
Thank you for shedding light on that issue. And the second question as well, because obviously you mentioned the verse about not trusting, the fasiq or investigating. The second I wanted to ask was some Hausa students and academics in Qom and Iran, and these articles have been published in English. In regard to Eid al-Zahra, now they're saying, for example, this celebration, many scholars accept it, the 9th of Rabi' al-Awwal. But they've come along, many of them, and they're saying that, for example, the first primary source of this celebration is from a Nusayri book. And they say that, okay, if we have to investigate who we take our deen from, this is from the Qulat, and we never take from the Qulat. And they say, secondly, in their objection, that this date goes against the Tawatur date, that Omar, may the curse of Allah be upon him, was killed in Dhul Hijjah. So they say that you're being dishonest in history, you're not being an honest historian, because this goes against Tawatur. And they say, of course, say that unknown narrators. So they brought up this point time and time and again, that the first source and hadith for Eid al-Zahra is from a Nusayri book. And of course, they bring about the pens being lifted, but that's obviously a theological discussion. So no one's obviously addressed this issue in English. And I think it'd be useful if you could maybe address it briefly, and then inshallah in the future, maybe on that date, you could give a show about this and address this doubt that's coming. Because now they're saying it's bid'ah, many people. So I just wanted to...
Absolutely. It's very important. It's very, very interesting that they try to prove this as bid'ah while they forget their own principle, widely respected principle that which they didn't have. At-tasamuh fi adillat as-sunan, on recommended actions, their leniency towards leniency towards the proofs that are with regard to recommended actions. So nobody is saying that showing rejoice and festivity on the 9th of Rabi is obligatory, and if you do not do it, you have committed a sin. Those who rejoice and celebrate 9th of Rabi, they say it's recommended. And all Mujtahideen, I don't think there's any dispute. They all Mujtahideen, they agree that there's a leniency with regard to the proofs that indicate recommended acts. So even if that proof, hadith man balagh, they have hadith of man balagh, right? Hadith man balagh indicates that if a hadith reaches you and a certain reward has been promised in that hadith, even if that hadith was not true, later Allah will give you the reward because you try to follow the saying of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they have this principle. And now with regard to ghulat, that because a hadith has been narrated by ghulat, that we have no such principle that if a person is a ghali, you cannot understand take his hadith. And many people were, and ghulu itself, what is ghulu itself? Exaggeration with regard to the status of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. This is not something that would indicate if a person is not reliable, he's making lie about Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. The fasiq that is the verse is talking about, the fasiq is a person who's not, he's not talking about, if you read how the verse was narrated, right? It was how the verse was revealed. It was revealed about Aisha when she alleged that the wife of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Maria al-Qibtiyah, she's having a relationship with another man, with her cousin, and Allah said Aisha is that fasiq. Or Walid ibn Uqba, as I remember, about him, but he brought a news. It was revealed on 2 different occasions. He said that I went to such and such a tribe, and this person was refusing to give me zakat. So this is a person not with regard to beliefs. A person who believes Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam has great virtues, has very high virtues that are usually not understood by people. Other people, Shia might consider him ghali, right? But this person has his own beliefs. He's not a corrupt person, a degenerate person. That is his belief according to hadith. The degeneracy that the verse is talking about is degeneracy in a low life, a person who lies, shamelessly lying person, a person who drinks, a person who doesn't fear God. He's talking about such a fisk, not about a person who is talking, who has beliefs about Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. At any rate, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, I'll look further into this point that you brought up.
Inshallah, I'll email you the article, inshallah ta'ala, because the main point they're emphasizing on is from a Nusayri book. You cannot trust the ghulat. They always exaggerate. And the historical point where they say it goes against tawatur of Omar being killed. They say all historians...
Oh, no, there's no tawatur. Tawatur. There is no tawatur. Absolutely, there's no tawatur. There's no tawatur about the date of demise of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look, the date the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, he was martyred. That date is disputed. How could there be tawatur about anything, about Omar's, the day he died. How many narrations there are about Omar being killed on such a day? That's an exaggeration. That there's tawatur. We do not know. There are different dates mentioned for Omar's demise. One of them is 9th Rabi'ah, according to some Shia narrations. Therefore, according to the principle of leniency to reports of lenient acts, inshallah, if you want to rejoice and throw out parties, that's a good idea. May Allah bless you. I'll look for further, inshallah. Yeah.
Just with the main points in the article. It's a short article anyway, but maybe you could address it, inshallah. But thanks for all the time.
Inshallah, inshallah. May Allah bless you. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Very happy to hear your voice. Yep. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mr. Hassan Alari. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Allah yar'ak. Allah yahfazak. Tafadhal.
كيف الحال؟
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
الله يخليك.
Could you speak in English, please?
أنا علي عراق. I could speak English, but not that much. So I
okay, sure. Go ahead.
From Iraq, just I living in California. Just I have, so of course I like your program so much. So just I have one question to you. Why don't you focus about the subjects about Omar, Abu Bakr, Uthman, Aisha? I think
inshallah.
The majority of Muslims, they need
they do.
Muslims, they need this. Yeah. So
they do because that was something I was doing. Something I was doing for years. For years I was.
We are working that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me answer. For years, I was focusing on this matter. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. And the mujtahideen in the Maraji, they were stabbing me in the back. They were fighting me. They were waging a war against me. And I was not doing anything against them. And then I was just perplexed. Why? I'm not, because I'm doing something that serves the Shia. And many people are becoming Shia in faraway places that you would not believe. Somalia, places like Chad, probably you've never heard of that country. Libya, Algeria, different countries, faraway places. People were becoming Shia. And I was talking about, and these mujtahideen, hold on. Yeah. And mujtahideen were fighting me, especially the famous Maraji. They were fighting me. And they were not even talking to me. And I was trying to, God knows, hundreds of times I tried to talk to them. That why are you doing this? Just let's talk. Not that they would have time to talk to me. I sent people, very trusted people, to go find out why are they doing this. They're so arrogant. They think they're the kings of the world. They would not even talk. So I was forced to examine marja'iyah. What I was like you. I was like all the rest of the Shia. I thought Maraji were the deputies of the Imam alayhi salam. They are the representatives of the Imam alayhi salam. So I said, before I speak out against them because they're fighting me, let's find out who they are. What is their position? Do I have to obey them even though I do not agree with them? So I was forced to examine. They didn't give me any choice to study marja'iyah. Yeah. And then when I studied marja'iyah, when I studied marja'iyah, I found out the marja'iyah from A to Z, from alif to ya. Every bit of it is bid'ah, is blasphemy, is heresy, is made up. So, and then I realized that this is such a great problem for the Shia. Shia have abandoned following Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and they follow these Maraji who are controlled, usually, most of the time, controlled by their corrupt sons, corrupt sons-in-law, corrupt relatives, and Shia send billions, and not millions, billions with a B, dollars to them every year. And their leaders, they are usually in diapers. Their minds usually do not work. They're afflicted with dementia because of old age. And all this money, is wasted on stupid things or on things that are actually haram. And then this is a leadership. Marji'iyya is a leadership that's illegitimate, doesn't have any religious legitimacy on the one hand, and second, doesn't have any vision for the Shia. Marji'iyya is not taking us anywhere. It's not, many of them Maraji, they do not have any sort of loyalty to defending Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So I was forced. This is out of necessity. This is not something I enjoy. I really I earnestly want to return to discussions of Abu Bakr and Omar. But I have to explain this. I have to explain this to the Shia because these Shia scholars, they are very, very bad. When they fight back real good. They bring you down, they tear you apart, and they do not leave for you any place in the Shia community. So therefore, I have to explain my case to the Shia, and then inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, when I'm done with this Marji'iyya and Wilayat al-Faqih, I'll get back to Abu Bakr and Umar. Okay?
Oh, yeah. So I remember that. Yeah, I remember all that because I was in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't hear you. Oh, okay, yeah. So I remember that because I was in Iraq and I don't absolutely agree them. Even I have my muqallid, but I don't agree him because you just explained the aqidah, and aqidah it doesn't like it's no matter about the fatwa or something. It's just aqidah. You read information from books. So, but I remember that, and many people support you, even me. So for a long time, but I know you explain about Abu Bakr, Omar, and Uthman, all these people, and you were very very effective, but in Arabic language, not in English language.
Inshallah,
so
I'll start in English too.
Just need,
of course,
we need that. So
that's my obligation.
I'm so happy to talk to you about this.
May Allah bless you. That's my obligation. I have to do that. There is no other way. But I was fought back by the Shia scholars so much that I have to do this, inshallah. There are two things that I have to explain more. After Taqlid, I'm done. Taqlid, this was today's last speech. After Taqlid, I have to do Wilayat al-Faqih. I have to do revolution. After doing these two, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, we are back on Abu Bakr and Umar, okay? In English.
I don't know, but I see the priority for Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman.
Inshallah. No, you don't know the Shia scholars, believe me. Abu Bakr and Omar are nothing. They're Omaris, they do not have any proofs, they do not have any defense, they cannot do anything against Shia. In this age of information, the Omari ideology could be brought down very easily. Abu Bakr and Omar has a big shield, a very effective defense. You know who that defense is? Tell me who that defense is.
Yeah.
I tell you, that defense is Shia Ulama, Shia Marji'iyya. The Shia Marji'iyya is the defense, the most effective defense that Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, Aisha have is the Shia Marji'iyya. It is them who do not allow you to bring them down. It's them who do not allow in Shia Hawza, Shia seminaries, Shia doctrines, Shia Aqidah, Shia dogma to be taught. It's them who do not allow Shia scholars to be brought up, educated enough to defend Shia faith. It's anyways, this is very long pain. Inshallah, I'll talk about this more in the future. May Allah bless you, brother. Thank you. Yallah, brother Afaf.
God bless you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. May Allah bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And many Shia do not know this. Majority of Shia, especially those living in the West, they think that these Maraji are so righteous, so God-fearing, and they are such good Shia. They love Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and they want to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. That is very, very, that's so funny and so sad at the same time, because you should not know who is leading you. The people who are leading you, whether the political leaders of Iran, who are leaders of a big portion of the Shia population, or the Maraji. The worst kind of harm that reaches Shia faith in Shia populations in different countries, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, in different countries, is from these people. Now, this matter requires a lot of analysis and explanation because you are far away. You're far away from Maraji. You're far away from Shia, what has been happening in the last 40 years to the Shia, and what could have been done and what was not done, and what is taught in the Hawza, how Maraji are made Maraji. You're not familiar with all of that. You just hear things. You think it's a very good process, how people become Maraji. So all of this requires a lot of discussion, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. If one day I want, I'll bring them up, or I'll leave them for you, because there's so much to be said, and this is not, and there are so many important things to be said. Maybe I'll discuss them one day. Assalamu alaikum. Please go ahead.
Alaikum salam. I would like to thank you very much for your beautiful and informative and useful lectures. And I really appreciate your time and energy. I've got a question for you. My question is, in past, women or people use henna for beauty and fashion on their nails and on their hands. And nowadays, people use nail polish for fashion or for beauty. So I'm wanting to know if I apply nail polish, my wudu is going to be all right, or no?
Wudu is not going to be all right. Wudu. Well, see, the problem is the Qur'an says faghsilu. You wash your hands, right? Wash your hands, and you have to wash all of the hand. And Hadith also says you have to wash your hands. Now, if there's one area that's covered, that's not being washed. If that area is covered, that's the only problem. That's the problem. If you have nail polish on your finger here, let's say nail polish here, that area is not going to be washed, because that's the problem. Because Quran says, فَغْسُلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ. You have to wash your face, you have to wash your hands. And Hadith says also you wash your hands. So if you have something there that does not allow it to be washed, then that's the problem. That is the problem. Henna is not that thick. Henna is the pigment of the skin itself. So henna is not a layer that covers your skin. It's not a coating that coats your skin. Henna is the pigment of it's a temporary pigment that is skin pigment changes into orange or red or dark brown for a few days or a few weeks. So it's not a coating that blocks water from reaching your skin. Now, that's my answer to you at this stage. If perhaps if I study further in detail, perhaps I'll find something more. But that's the problem right now that's in my mind with nail polish.
Yeah. Okay, that would be great if you study further and let us know, because some of henna is like I don't know, maybe they are fake. When we use it, it's very obvious that we can see a layer of color on our nails and on our hands. Like when I push it, I can easily remove it a bit harder. And I was thinking maybe nail polish obviously is a layer, and so I was thinking, it's maybe acting the same way henna is a thinner layer, but nail polish is thicker.
Maybe you could use
like that, right?
The artificial nails. They stick it in and then you remove it when you're making wudu.
Okay, so if I make 3 times a day wudu, so I have to wash it.
I don't know how ladies stick it in, glue it in, and that glue is maybe difficult to remove. But if it's not difficult to remove, you can do that. Remove or the other. A woman who do not pray when they're having their monthly periods, they don't have to pray. So at that time, there's no problem. But when they're not in their monthly periods, they could put temporary nails, the artificial nails. Is that an option? Or that's difficult to remove?
Well, the nail polish is a lot greater than artificial one, because it's like okay.
Or if you find some kind of go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just was telling you it would be great if you study further and maybe
Inshallah,
for the
I will try. Yeah,
using.
I'll try. Inshallah, if I don't forget, I'll go look at it further. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
May Allah bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad.
Ya Ali Madad. Go ahead, please. Yes. Assalamu alaikum. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So, let me take this call. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, brother. I have a question. I have heard some of your sermons, and I have a question.
Where are you calling from?
My question is, I'm calling from Denmark. But first, I want to say salam to you.
May Allah bless you. Allah keep you well. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, I have heard some of your sermons, and that you have explained something about hijab.
Yes. Hello? Hello? I lost you for a second. I lost you for a second, bro. Can you call back, brother? Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead. Okay, with regard to the question of hijab, if a woman has beautification, ornaments on her hands, right? Or on her face, that's not obligatory to hide, or on her dress, If she has to cover her head and the chest, just to cover that. But she does not have to cover the hands, all the areas that until where they wear the hand siwar, the hand brace, the bracelets. So they don't have to cover that. Yes, one moment, please. So they don't have to cover that. Now, if there is a ring or there's henna or there's on the face, there's something, a makeup or anything, that according to the verse of Qur'an and Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam, that zina, that ornament, beautification, or on the dress, that doesn't have to be hidden. Go ahead, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam again to you, my brother. I have heard some of your sermon that you have said that a girl must only keep her hair out of the sight of a non-mahram. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's the verse of Quran.
And that
لا يبدين زينتهن إلا ما ظهر منها. Yeah.
Yes. But I have also heard you saying this, that Imam Ali and his two sons, when they wanted her daughter to go out, they were with her, with Zainab, and Imam Ali was in the front, Imam Hassan in her left, and Imam Hussein in the right of her. And she would go to the graveyard of the Prophet of Islam, and he will also send someone to Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, and he will also go and send someone to turn the light a little bit off, so no one can see Hazrat Zainab. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've not seen that in the books of Hadith. I have not seen that in the books of Hadith.
You said it in your sermons. I have heard it by myself.
Well, I forgot if I said that, but I don't recall reading that in the books of Hadith.
But I have your sermon because it is.
Maybe I said it, but right now, what I remember now reading in the books of Hadith is what I'm telling you.
But my question is, if Imam Ali is so he is very protective, and he don't want his daughter to be seen of a non.
I think you're confusing me with someone else. I don't think I've said that. I think you're confusing me with someone else.
I am very, very 100% sure that you have said it.
Okay.
I can find your sermon until tomorrow. Or
so that could be an act of respect. So that could be an act of respect. So if a woman walks out, so if I said that, that's perhaps an act of respect. If a lady goes out to market or to the graveyard or somewhere else.
I know. I don't say that the lady cannot go out. That's not my point. My point is, you said that a girl only needs to.
That's what I said. Yeah.
From, what about her body? What about her shape of body? Don't she have to also wear that, like her?
She has to. She has to wear. She has to wear dress that is covering her. So she cannot expose her chest. She cannot expose her chest. She cannot expose her arms. She cannot expose. The only area that she can expose are the face and hands. Until that area, they wear the braces, and the feet. They can expose that, and the rest of the body they have to cover. But the shape of the body. Listen, and Hadith of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. I have to look again. What cover that? If now a woman wears something that's so tight, like let's say made of plastic, right? That's exposing everything. So it's just covering it, but exposing everything. That could be problematic, but that's from the Bab of Shubha. Yeah, that's Shubha, because Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam said anything that resembles, yes, I'm saying anything that resembles haram, you have to abandon it. So it will be something that resembles haram.
Yes, but know, Shaykh, many people here, they hear a sermon. I'm not good at speaking at Farsi, but I'm good at understanding it. Many people say here that your word means that a girl can go out and here. I say it in your program. Sorry. But she can expose her shape of her butt, because you have said that she only needs to cover her hair.
She has to cover. She has to cover everything. But I didn't say anything about she can expose her butt. I didn't say that.
I know. But I mean that she's not showing it off. I know.
So
that you have to cover it. But I mean,
anything that resembles haram, anything that's shubha that resembles haram, you have to abandon it. You have to stay away from it. Now, woman
with the same meaning of
women can wear dress that's beautiful, that's nice, that's fashionable. They can wear that. But if something is so bad that you're wearing it, that it resembles haram, then you be from the Bab of Shubha, you have to abandon it. Okay? Yalla. Thank you. I explained myself. Okay. Thank you. Allah bless you. Now, if somebody wants to discuss these matters, and when I discuss hijab, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, when we read hadith, when we discuss these matters, that's more beneficial at that time, because then everything would be ready and everything would be fresh in your mind. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Where are you calling from?
Assalamu alaikum. Sir, I am Asif Mahmood and I am calling from Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Sir, I am calling from Pakistan.
Allah keep you all. Go ahead, please.
Sir, I want to ask that have we got any hadith from Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhi about the concept of the nikah muta? Have we got any
many hadith?
Any
yes,
instruction?
Not one. Yes.
And also and I want to ask that in my country, the non-Shia Muslims they used to say us that if you say Ya Ali Madad, then it's against the concept of Tawheed. How should I explain it to them?
I'll explain that another time, inshallah. Okay, I'll explain that another time. All right, Brother Asif Mahmoud.
Okay.
Leave the answer for another time on that question. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, brother. Go ahead, please. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pakistan, Islamabad.
May Allah bless you, brother. May Allah give you health. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, I've been listening to you since 3-4 months, and I'm sad that I couldn't listen to you years back, but I'm listening to your Urdu lectures right now on YouTube, and Alhamdulillah, that haq has been revealing to me right now. I can feel proud to be the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So thank you so much for that.
Allah keep you well.
Thank you very much. Actually, Sheikh, I'm planning, firstly, I would like you to advise me on my Hausa studies, because I'm planning to go to Qum next year for my Hausa studies.
Okay, good
so
luck.
What do you think? Would you advise me to go there?
Don't become a kafir. That's my advice to you.
So what should I do? Sheikh, can you please advise me?
What can I tell you? What can I tell
you? I want to study because I have canceled all my university plans and everything.
95% of people, 95% of people who go to Hausa, they go there, become kafir, and they do not even know it. That's the problem. Sometimes you convert.
So what should I do? Can you advise me on how should I continue my studies? And
I tell you,
I could study.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
So the majority of people who go to Hausa, they go there. They lose their iman, they lose their faith, they do not even know it. So most people who become atheists or become non-Shia, they know. But the problem with Hausa is that they make you such that you think that you have become a scholar. As a matter of fact, you're out of bounds of Shiism. So the best thing that I could think of for you is follow my lectures. And go to Umari madrasas. They teach very good Arabic. They teach very good sarf, nahu in these matters. And then if you follow my lectures, you will learn a lot. You'll learn more in my lectures.
So
lecture.
Should I practice Taqiyya there?
Where? Umari schools? Yeah. Why not? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could. That's an option. They're not bad. If you want to go to Hausa, you could go to Hausa, but remember that just like when you go to Omari schools, you will hide that your true identity, and you have to maintain your true identity. Likewise, when you go to Hausa, you have to remember that there is a program there to brainwash you, to make you a tool of the Iranian foreign policy. That there's a long tradition there of deviation from Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. So yeah, if you could stay away from that, and if you could still maintain your identity, then sure, you can go to Hausa just as you can go to non-Shia school. Okay, yalla. May Allah bless you.
Sheikh, I don't want to follow the marja scene and all and Taqiyya and all, but I just want to study there. I would just want to have the basics, the basic roots of knowledge, then I can study further on my own.
Yeah, okay then. Good luck.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, Sheikh. And Sheikh, secondly, please, can you make some lectures over these Umari scholars, the Hadith scholars and all, because they've been so disturbing, like they have nasibis in their chin, but they still don't accept it. Can you please make some lectures in Urdu and English? I can listen to both. If you can help me with this. You can help us with this in Pakistan, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, Sheikh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you. Thank you, brother. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Go ahead, please. You're live. Go ahead. Where are you calling from?
Sorry,
brother?
I've been trying to call.
Yeah.
I'm calling from US.
Okay. What can I do for you?
I have to be upfront. I haven't really watched all the Taqlid lectures. I just happened to catch this one.
Yeah.
So I have some homework.
Yeah.
But I did have one question. So it's kind of so I guess from my understanding of Taqlid, it's that you entrust someone else to kind of do all the work of reading the Hadith and so on.
You don't know what he's doing. You do not know what he's doing. Mujtahideen, they do not tell you that they are deriving their rulings only from Hadith. That's what they tell you. They tell you Hadith is one of their sources. Another source is their own reason, and they tell you. And that's clear in their books. That they say we derive our rulings from Qur'an, from Sunnah, from consensus, and from reason, from their own aql. So something could be in Hadith, they could discard it, saying the Hadith is weak. And they do it commonly. They throw away a Hadith by dozens, but rather by hundreds. According to Hui, who was the most respected jurist in the recent eras, majority of Shia Hadith are junk. Majority of Shia Hadith are not reliable. So, and that's, I'm not exaggerating that. That's in his books. That is very commonly known in the school of thought. So they discard a Hadith not by dozens, not by hundreds, by the thousands. And they give you fatwa, they give you verdicts based on their own analysis, based on their own reason. So their fatwa, you do not know. A fatwa is coming to you, whether it's based on Hadith, based on Qur'an, or based on Hadith and Qur'an, they have combined the two, or it's based out of their own rationality, their own mental, rational calculations that they think this is something you should do, therefore it's wajib. So you do not know where it's coming from. It may not be coming. A fatwa may be coming from Hadith. It may not be coming from Hadith. You never know, unless you do the research yourself. Go ahead, please.
Okay. No, that's kind of like where my question was, because from the lecture today, there really isn't a difference between me going to books of Hadith and trying to get an answer to a question versus going to a marja, right?
So when you go to a marja, I'm not encouraging you you should go to the books of Hadith. That might not be even easy for you. That might not be even doable for you. For you to go to the books of Hadith and try to learn what Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said on your own. Perhaps books of Hadith are not available in English. They're in Arabic, and it would be very difficult for you to learn that. Even if they were in English, for you to understand what they are saying would take some time. So that's not what I advise. But going to the marja is that you are simply following his words. His word is hujjah for you, is the law of Islam for you. Now, this method has not been encouraged by Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. This has no legality, no legitimacy by Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. That you have this person named marja. You have this person, his name is marja, and he is making rules for you. And he is issuing rules for you because you do not have the time to understand hadith. This method is totally against the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. What scholars should be doing is that they should explain hadith to you. They deliver the hadith to you. They make hadith accessible for you. And that is something not Shia scholars are not doing. They have abandoned that path for centuries. If Shia scholars did what they were required to do, what Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu wasalam have obligated them to do, to explain hadith to the Shia, then it would be very easy for you. You as a Shia living in the United States, would be very easy for you. You don't have to follow marja this and marja that. You would be following the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, because Shia scholars, by the dozens, by hundreds, that was their job to deliver hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, that sounds
That makes sense? Okay, may Allah bless you. Allah keep you well. Yes, go ahead.
Or can I ask another question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What do you do?
Oh, okay.
What do you do?
Oh, I'm a student right now. I'm actually.
What level?
Going to school.
What level?
College.
College. May Allah bless you. Go ahead. What's your question?
So actually, this kind of relates to actually a couple classes I've taken. I've taken a class, for example, on like on the Bible and how like Christian scholars have interpreted the Bible. And kind of a big problem that I see, a big problem for me in any religion is that we're not in the time of the Imam, right? Like
we're not what?
We're not in the time of the Imam's Khalifa, right?
Okay.
So I guess like there's always been this doubt that like we can try our best to interpret like the Qur'an and the Hadith, but in the end it's like our own interpretation. So what if like we don't have the right interpretation? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'll explain to you. Okay. There are things that are ambiguous, okay? Especially when you go to Christianity. So I don't want you to ever compare Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam with the Bible. You're talking about different things. So there, if you make an analogy, that's wrong. So Hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam, or first of all, there is a big number of Hadith. We have tens of thousands of Hadith and thousands of Hadith on different subjects. So some of these Hadith could be ambiguous. They would be subject to different interpretations. You could understand different things. You wouldn't be able to know what a Hadith means, right? Because they could be understood in different ways. But not all Hadith are like that. Not all Hadith are like that. There are many Hadith, especially when it comes to halal and haram. In most subjects, these Hadith could be understood. And a person who knows the language, just like a person who you read a newspaper, if let's say Biden says something, you understand what he said. It's not so. Some things Biden or Trump say, they are subject to different interpretations. What they meant, we don't know. Some of the statements are clear. We understand what they said. Likewise, the sayings of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sayings of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu wassalam, they are not in different ways. You can interpret them any way you want. That's not like that. That's not true. That's not true. If somebody tells you that, he's being dishonest. He's being dishonest. The Hadith, they're just, the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu wassalam made an effort. They went out of their way to make it easy for their Shia to understand Islam, to follow Islam, and so their words be understood by the people. So there are some ahadith we do not understand their meanings, and we have to be very, very honest about those ahadith, and we have to say that these ahadith are difficult to understand, and we do not really know the context of the transmission of this hadith, and there are not enough clues for us to decipher what the Imam alayhi salam really meant, because there are different possible meanings. But those are not all the hadith. There are some hadith like that, but the majority of hadith, we can understand them. You got it?
Yeah. No, I guess that's more of like a shubha type.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always scared, like.
Yeah, that is a shubha of two types of people. People who do not know hadith, or people who have an agenda against hadith. Okay? Yalla. Thank you. Goodbye, my brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam. May Allah bless you. Allah keep you well. Thank you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Salam.
Salam. Who's this?
I'm calling you from Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Wow. Quite an honor. How are you, brother?
I'm fine. I have a question.
What is the question?
My question is, in Sri Lanka, we don't have any people to ask about or religion.
You don't have anybody to ask about religion?
Yes, there's no many people to ask questions. And we first.
How old are you? How old are you?
I am 35 years old.
And what do you do?
What?
What do you do? You have kids?
Work at a shop. Yes,
you have kids?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what to tell you, really, brother. There's internet. There's the phone. You called me.
No,
so
I called you because
there are books available online.
Yes, but my question is, if we don't have anyone to ask because we can't trust anyone, how can we know about the rules of our religion?
If you don't have anybody that you can ask, then you have a phone, you have internet, you have email, right? If you don't have anybody, then I suggest you just start migrating. If any time it becomes impossible to follow religion in a country, then you have to follow. You have to migrate to another place where you have access to that kind of information. Okay? Yalla, thank you, brother. Any other questions?
Hello? No.
Yes. Stop clicking the phone, okay? Yeah, stop clicking the phone. Stop playing with the phone. Okay, go ahead.
I'm done.
Yeah. Okay, you're done.
Question is, I'm not done.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question. My question is, if we can't trust anyone to ask them about our religion because they don't use a hadith like you said.
Oh, that's a different question. Okay.
How can we? Who do we trust to do?
No, you trust only trustworthy people, like anything. Like anything. If you when you ask question of law, right? You're in Sri Lanka. Okay, please stop clicking the phone. Thank you. Now, if you're okay, I'm going to answer the phone. Okay, I'm going to answer. Please listen. Thank you. Now, if a person in any place, you are talking to someone, if you trust him, you accept his word. If you do not, I'm not saying do not trust anyone. You can trust people. Of course you can trust. As long as there's enough reason to trust them, you can trust them. You can trust them. So if you're in Sri Lanka, if you don't just trust anybody, right? If you ask somebody about the law, what is the legal code for doing something? You have to trust somebody. If he's trustworthy, he tells you, then of course you do that. Likewise, here, when you ask somebody, if you trust him that he's telling you the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, then of course you can take it. You can take it. However, if a person is giving you always his opinion, he's never giving you hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, always giving you his opinion, and he's saying, my opinion is law of Islam for you, this method is against the method of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have not asked their Shia to follow this path. That another person, another non-ma'asum, his opinions is always laws of Islam for you. What is law for you is not his opinions, is the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And he should be narrating the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to you and teaching the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Now, if this person is trustworthy, he's quoting hadith to you, of course you can trust him. Of course you can trust him. If you have another person who is trustworthy, but he's trustworthy only if he's giving you his opinions. Opinion this, opinion A, opinion B, opinion fatwa A, fatwa B, fatwa A, fatwa B. He's always giving his fatwa. This is not something that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam have prescribed for you to follow. Okay, last call. Last one. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Yes, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, please.
I'm Kashif Rizvi from India.
Kashif Rizvi, it's an honor talking to you. How are you?
I'm fine, Sheikh.
Okay, what can I do for you?
Sheikh, I have some questions that about Allama Muhammad Baqir Majlisi.
Yeah.
That he said and he believed that the Quran have been changed. The Quran have been taweez. While the Quran says that people who believe and think that Quran have been changed are kafir.
Oh yeah? How about Omar then? Omar says in Bukhari, if people do not say, people do not say that Omar has changed the Quran, I will write these verses in the Quran. He said clearly in Bukhari that there are verses from the Quran that have been removed. Omar says in Bukhari. Now, what do you say about that? If Quran says anybody who thinks Quran is altered, then Omar would be the first kafir, right? Long before Majlisi. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Goodbye.
Sir. Another question. I have another question.
That's enough. May Allah bless you. Thank you. I have to go. End of the program. End of program today. Okay, Kashif. Next program you call.
Okay, sir.
Okay. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف. May Allah bless you all. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
علي بن أبي طالب أخي نبيك ووليه وصفيه ووزيره ومستودع علمه وموضع سره وباب حكمته والناطق بحجته والداعي إلى شريعته وخليفته في أمته ومفرج الكرب عن وجهه قاسم الكفرة